Welcome to the College of Health Sciences at Marquette University. My name is Jen Klump, and I'm the Director of Student Success and Recruitment here in the college. And along with our faculty and staff, it is my pleasure to welcome you to our college and help you get prepared for registration for the upcoming fall 2024 semester. We are so excited to have you here on campus, and we want to make sure you feel as prepared as possible as you go into course registration. So during our time together in this video, we will talk about the 30,000-foot view of advising and registration in the College of Health Sciences. There are also a lot of different handouts that are available to you in our portal, so please make sure to check those out as you are preparing to register. Before we dive into the details, though, we want to make sure that you've got this background information so that you can contextualize the information that is in those handouts, and hopefully that helps you make the most out of your registration experience. So during our time together today, we'll be focused on three big questions. Number one, where can you find information about your academic requirements? Number two, who do you talk to if you have questions? And then number three, what should you be keeping in mind as you plan your schedule for the fall 2024 semester? So before we dive in, I want to give a quick shout out to our College of Health Sciences Spark team. You might end up interacting with some of us over the summer if you're here during June for Spark, or just emailing with us over the summer if you've got questions that we can help out with. In the Dean's office, we've got a team of people that you can see right here, myself included, who are really dedicated to making sure that your experience getting onboarded at Marquette is a good one. We're also here to support you throughout your time at Marquette. So if you ever have a question that you don't know who to go to or you don't know how to find the answer to, come to the Dean's office or contact us, and we will always help you answer that question or get you connected with the right person who can. You'll also meet a variety of faculty and staff advisors from your major throughout the summer. Each major functions a little bit differently, but everyone has at least one point person for incoming freshmen over the summer, so you know you've got a go-to to get your questions answered. And really all of us are committed to helping make sure that your transition to Marquette and your beginning of your fall semester is a great one. So let's dive in to talk about undergraduate majors next. All of our incoming students have a declared undergraduate major. You'll see the list of our 4 majors here, as well as the abbreviation for each of them, which you'll probably see throughout your time registering. We think it's really important for you to get a sense of what your major is. So if you're someone that's undecided, we've already asked you to enroll in the major that you feel like best fits what your interests are. We really treat it as a hypothesis. We want you to have that hypothesis and then test it in your first semester. So every major has an introductory course where you'll learn a little bit about the different areas of study in the major, professors, research opportunities, some student success topics, and potential careers that the majors might lead to. We find that this is a really good way to figure out if something is a good fit for you. So you should be able to see your declared undergraduate major in checkmark under the degree progress tile at this point in time. If it's incorrect, please feel free to reach out to us with the contact info I'll give at the end of the presentation. We really want to make sure that it is correct so that when you're registering, you've got everything right in the system. If you're part of a direct admit professional program like physical therapy, occupational therapy, athletic training, or pre-dental scholars, you might see this abbreviation on your record as well. And next to them, you'll see the majors that correlate with them. So even if, let's say, you're in the PT program, you still are going to be earning a bachelor's degree before you enter that program. And so we want to make sure that you've got the accurate thing in our system. So let's dive in and talk advising. We take this really seriously here in the College of Health Sciences because we know it can be so nuanced to pick your classes and decide what you're doing as you're moving along towards your long-term goal, usually in the health professions. So to that end, everybody is assigned an academic advisor, and you can always find information about your advisor in Checkmark. So here on the screen, you'll see a view of the Manage Classes tile from Checkmark. There's also an advising tile where you can find that information. Over the summer, as I mentioned before, each major will typically have 1 or 2 people who are the point person for incoming freshmen over the summer. We want to make sure that you always have access to someone who's giving you great, consistent information as you're making your transition into Marquette. Typically in those majors, you may be transitioned to a new advisor when the fall semester comes around. You'll learn more about that in your introductory class because we want to make sure that each major is doing what they need to do to pair you with the best fit for you. Typically, they're going to be looking at what your future career goals are and matching you up with a faculty or a staff advisor that really fits with those goals nicely. In general, once you are a student here full-time in the fall, you'll meet with your advisor at least once per semester. That is the mandatory check-in before you register for classes for the upcoming semester. At that time, you'll talk about how classes are going, any suggestions that they might have for you to finish the semester strong, look at some classes for next semester, and think a bit about additional things you might want to be doing as you're moving towards your goal of graduation and then your ultimate career of some kind. You are able to meet with people more than that if you want to meet with your advisor more than once per semester, but that one meeting is definitely mandatory so that you can go and register for classes without any problems. We also have supplemental advisors, and these are advisors for special programs like honors, EOP, or athletics. And then we also have a supplemental advisor here in the College of Health Sciences, our pre-health advisor, Lori Gall. So there's more information about the services that she offers in your portal. And just know that she's a resource to help you reach your goals if your goals include going to graduate or professional school. So pre-medical, dental, PA, PT, etc. She's a resource to you along with your academic advisor, and they really work in tandem to make sure you're meeting that short-term goal of graduation and then that long-term goal of entrance to a graduate or professional program. And then lastly, like I mentioned before, the Dean's Office is always a resource for you as well. So if you've got a question about advising or academics and you don't know who else to ask, stop by the Dean's Office or send us an email and we can get you settled. All right, so now we're on to the big question. What do you need to graduate from the College of Health Sciences with your Bachelor of Science degree? This is one of the things that your academic advisor is here to help you stay on track for, but ultimately it's your responsibility each semester to make sure that you are on track. So you'll need a total of 128 credits to graduate from the College of Health Sciences. This breaks down to about 16 credits per semester. This 128 number includes any test or transfer credits that you might have. So let's say you bring in 3 credits with an AP English score of a 4. That means we can subtract 3 from that 128 and you need to take a total of 125 credits here at Marquette. You'll also need to take at least 45 credits here at Marquette. This is not too hard to do when you come in as an incoming freshman. And then your final 30 credits also need to happen at Marquette. Some majors might have additional requirements like the grades that you can get in major specific classes, but you'll find more information about those on the handouts available in the portal. So on the screen, you're going to see the breakdown of the various components of your undergraduate major. There are 4 main components, and these add up to a total of 128 credits. That averages out to that 16 credits per semester number, but know that as a first semester freshman, many of you will end up with a schedule of either 14 or 17 credits based on how the classes fit together. So let's go through the different pieces one by one. First up, we have the Marquette core curriculum. This is required of all Marquette undergraduate students, regardless of their undergraduate major, and really provides the liberal arts educational tradition that is foundational to your degree. In your freshman year, you mainly need to concentrate on what we call the foundations tier. So there are 4 of these: English, theology, philosophy, and a category called ESSV 1, or Engaging Social Systems and Values 1. You'll take 2 of these courses in the fall and 2 of these courses in the spring, so it's pretty simple. Honor students will look a tiny bit different, but it will still typically be 2 in the fall and 2 in the spring. More information on that in your portal. Next up, we've got required foundational classes. So you'll sometimes also hear these called cognates. These are basically courses that are really important background for you to have for your undergraduate major, but we don't teach them here in the College of Health Sciences. So think things like biology, chemistry, psychology, statistics, stuff like that. Then you've got your major courses. So depending on your major, you might have more or less credits here, but hopefully these are the classes that you're really excited to take because they make up the bulk of the courses that you're taking during your undergraduate degree. Some majors will also have some specific requirements for these courses, like a certain grade that's required in order to have it count towards your major. And last but not least, we've got general electives. So these are kind of the toughest thing for most freshmen to wrap their minds around because in many ways you probably had a pretty structured high school curriculum. All of our undergraduate majors and programs are going to have room for at least 1 general elective, and most majors will have many more than that. These are classes that don't count for anything other than that 128 total credits that you need to graduate from Marquette. So some people just use these for balance and fun. Most of you will have a pretty intense course load in some semesters as a science student, so sometimes people will use them to throw in something fun like a dance class or take a random course that doesn't really have anything to do with their undergraduate major, like maybe music appreciation. Some students will choose to save up their electives to use them when they study abroad so that they don't have to worry about taking a science class while they're abroad, like taking biochemistry in Madrid, for instance. Some students will use them to accomplish a minor or even maybe a second major, depending on what your primary undergraduate major is. And a minor or a second major would really be about finding a new area that you want to concentrate in alongside your primary academic major. We have a resource in your portal that does have a list of ideas for general electives if you're like, I don't even know where to begin with this. It's not a prescriptive list, but it's definitely a great option if you just want to have a sense of what's out there, what kind of classes you might want to start thinking about. And it's really common to take an elective in your first semester freshman year. So probably the biggest question we get is, what is the best elective? And the answer to that question rather is that it depends on what you're interested in. So time to start thinking about that now before we dive into registration. So next we're going to show you how to find more information about your undergraduate major and the requirements during your academic career at Marquette. So you'll find those in what's called the Undergraduate Bulletin. This is a website that's a repository of really all the information that you need about policies, procedures, classes, and requirements that you might need during your time at Marquette. I'll show you some screenshots in a moment, but basically when you click on the Programs button in the University Bulletin, it's going to give you a list of all of the different academic majors and programs, which you can either search or scroll through. Once you click on your undergraduate major, it will show you the breakdown of the classes and the requirements for that major, some potential curriculum guides of semester by semester plans for classes, and then when you click on specific courses, it shows you how many credits that course is, a description of it, when the class was last offered, so you could tell if it's a fall-only course, a spring-only course, or if it's offered pretty much every semester, and then also prerequisites, so the courses that you need to take before you're eligible to take this class. So let's go ahead and dive into a couple screenshots of what it might look like. So when you go to bulletin.marquette.edu, this is the first thing that you'll see. Like I said, you're going to click on that button that says Programs to see the different academic majors and minors that we have here at Marquette. One quick note, if you are looking at this video prior to June 1st, you may see the 2023-2024 academic bulletin when you go to this website. Your bulletin year is 2024-2025, and that is typically live on June 1st. You're technically governed by the requirements of your bulletin you come in under. So for you, that would be the 2024-2025 bulletin. That will be your actual guidepost. If you're looking at the earlier version, feel free to poke around. There's not a lot that changes from year to year, but there are some things that change. So it will be important to double check that you have the correct information by looking at the 2024-2025 bulletin when it's live. Really, the reason we have you come in with a certain set of requirements is that we want to keep the rules the same throughout your whole time at Marquette. So the 2024-2025 bulletin will guide you throughout your entire time. We're not going to change the rules on you midstream. So once you click on that Programs button, it's going to show you a menu that looks like this. And like I said, you can either search, there's a little bar on the right-hand side, or you can just scroll through all the different options. That can be a nice move if you're looking to learn more about other minors or programs that you might be interested in. But in order to find your current academic major, just go ahead and type it in or scroll down to it, and we'll use biomedical sciences as the example here. So after you click on that button, you'll find a screen like this for whichever undergraduate major that you chose. So you'll find some different things that you can click on here, including requirements, which is going to show you that breakdown of what specific classes you need to take to fulfill the major specific requirements that I talked about before on the pyramid graphic. Under the Plan of Study tab, you'll also find semester by semester curriculum guides that will show you what classes you'd be taking depending what your long-term goal is. So for instance, for biomedical sciences, you'll see options for pre-medical or pre-dental, which is our typical plan for biomedical sciences. You'll see a pre-PA plan, a pre-PT plan, a pre-dental scholars plan, a pre-occupational therapy plan, you name it. Exercise physiology will also show you a bunch of different plans like that, so lots of options for you there. The Policies tab, as you would expect, is going to show you the academic policies in that undergraduate major. And then Honors will show you more information about disciplinary honors requirements if they're available in that major. And that's different than core honors, which is the incoming freshman program that some of you are a part of. So just a couple extra notes about some resources that are available to you in your student portal. You'll see some different handouts that you can use as you look at what classes you should be taking for upcoming semesters. So if you're just looking at that first semester, fall freshman year, I'd really encourage everybody to look at either the first semester enrollment handout or the honors program first semester enrollment handout. This will have a very simple list of by major what classes you should be adding to that shopping cart or considering enrolling in as you look at your fall semester. If you're looking for a zoomed out view where you can see semester by semester what you'll be taking, we also have curriculum sheets available for each undergraduate major, as well as the most common tracks in those majors. So think things like a DPT track, for instance, if you're in that program. So all of that information can be found in your portal, and I'd highly recommend that you download those so that you've got those easily accessible to you when you're getting ready for registration. All right, so there's a few other things that come up for freshman registration every year that we want to go over. First up is test and transfer credit. So you may have taken an AP exam, an IB exam, a CLEP exam, or you may have taken a high school class for college credit or taken a class through a local community college or something like that. We know we have very academically high achieving students, and so this comes up for us a lot. So there's a handout in the portal that's called something like test and transfer credits that will walk you through what to do in these situations in terms of, first of all, how to make sure Marquette has a record of these credits, and then what to do about course enrollment. So you do always need to make sure your credits are sent to Marquette, because we're not just going to know that you got that score on the AP exam or that you took that class through a community college. If it's a dual enrollment course, we need the transcript from the actual college that you took the course through, not through your high school that gave you credit for it. When we look at test and transfer credits, if they're accepted by Marquette, they go towards that 128 credits needed for your undergraduate degree, but they might not always fulfill requirements of some graduate or professional programs. So this is something to pay particular attention to. In terms of enrollment for first semester freshman year, there are some guidelines, especially about science test credits. This does have some nuances depending on your long-term goals. Specifically, PT and OT want to look at their materials specifically, but in general, science courses like biology, chemistry, and physics really should be taken at Marquette or another four-year institution regardless of test scores. You'll see a little bit more information on that handout about why. There's also information about what to do with test or transfer credits that fulfill things like MCC requirements, cognates, or electives, and this is usually more straightforward. If it doesn't go towards a specific requirement, it will come in as a general elective. So one example on that would be history. Let's say you took AP US history and you earned credit for it. We don't require a history class at Marquette, so that's going to count as general elective credit. It'll still take a bit off the top of that 128 credits, but it won't cross off anything on your curriculum guide. One really specific example that comes up a ton is English. So if you took the AP exam or the IB exam and you know that you got a score that tested you out of this subject, or if you already took the test but you don't know your score yet, but you anticipate that you did fairly well, even if you're not sure, just please don't take English in the fall. We want to make sure that people can register appropriately and not have to change their schedules a ton. So we'd rather you just save English for the spring semester. As I said earlier, you'll typically take 2 core classes in the fall and 2 in the spring. So let's just make English one of the spring classes. Slight caveat is if you're in the honors program, your requirement for rhetoric, which is this English requirement, looks different. So this doesn't exactly apply to you because English 1001 is not actually on your curriculum plan. So next we get a lot of questions about whether you need to take placement tests. So some students might want to take the second language placement exam at Marquette. We don't require a second language here in the College of Health Sciences, but if you think at all that you might be interested in pursuing one, I'd advise that you take the placement test now. If you've already taken an AP test or a college course and you know your grade or score and you know that it transfers to Marquette, you can actually check now to see if it's already in your academic record and check mark. That would be under the transfer credit tile. You would have needed to send those official scores or transcripts to Marquette already in order for that to have happened. If it is, you're good to go and you can enroll in the next step in that language sequence if you desire to. If it's not showing up in your record and you know that you want to try to take a language class first semester freshman year, you can email us at chsregistrationhelp@marquette.edu. Send us a screenshot or some other info regarding your test score or transfer credits, and then we'll help you navigate that situation. If you're still waiting on results of an AP or IB test, or you just don't anticipate any sort of credit for your language of choice, we'd advise that you take the placement test now and proceed with that score. It just takes about 20 minutes and you get your score right away. If you later end up earning a different placement test or placement via test scores or transfer credit, you can email us again at chsregistrationhelp@marquette.edu over the summer, and we'll work with you to ensure that you're enrolled in the appropriate course. So last up is the math placement assessment. Long story short, There's not a need for you to take the math placement assessment unless you know for sure you will want to take calculus in the future. We don't require calculus for graduation, and only a small handful of long-term goals might require you to take a calculus class. For example, some medical or dental schools and some pharmacy schools. You may hear from friends who are in different colleges at Marquette that they are required to take this placement assessment, and some colleges do require it of all of their students. We typically don't recommend taking calculus first semester freshman year anyway, and many of you might not take the class at all. So if you have questions about whether or not you should take it, please feel free to reach out and we can walk you through your options. As you're thinking about your schedule, it's important to consider that every credit that you take assumes that you are going to have 2 to 3 hours of study or work outside of the classroom environment. So if you take a 3-credit class, we assume that you are physically going to class 3 hours per week and that you're engaging in an additional 6 or more hours of study or work outside of that each week. So if you do the math and you look at the typical 16-credit semester, like the average College of Health Sciences student has, you'll note that it really does amount to more than a full-time job. This is one of the biggest transitions that we see our students have, the shift from having learning take place mostly in the classroom in high school to really the bulk of learning and work happening outside the classroom in college. So know that your schedule is going to show the physical class times on it, but you also need to be accounting for the hours of work that are taking place outside of the classroom. Because of this transition, we really recommend that you take 3 or 4 credit classes in session 1, which is our full semester during the freshman year. There are some instructions about ensuring this setting is on when you learn about Schedule Planner, and I'd highly recommend you look at our quick guide to Schedule Planner in our portal. There might be some exceptions where you'd be looking to take a class in half the regular semester, but we really only recommend that with 1-credit classes, which you should be directed to do by your major of choice. We want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success and building yourself a schedule where you'll be able to get in that 2 to 3 hours of work and study outside of class. Okay, so let's move on to talk about the things that you should keep in mind as you're planning your schedule for the fall semester. So a couple things to note. First, some of you might not have been to our campus yet, but it's fairly small. So 10 minutes is plenty of time to travel between classes, and that's actually already built into our class scheduling system for you. So don't feel like you need to worry about building in travel time from location to location or making sure that your classes are near each other. Next, make sure that you're scheduling no more than 3 classes back to back. Be sure to build in some downtime. So this is for a couple of reasons. One, we just know that our brains can only handle so much at once and we need to give them time to process. 2, we need to make sure that you're building in that 2 to 3 hours outside of class to study and work. So some block scheduling where you can build in some downtime and breaks can really account for that and give you purposeful time to work on stuff outside of the classroom. And third, you need to take care of yourself. So we need to build in breaks for lunch or working out or other things that are going to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. Also, when you're looking to schedule classes, make sure that you're scheduling classes every day of the week. You might find a schedule that gives you a day that is completely off, and this might look awesome. But what we see pretty much every year is that students who have a full day off rarely use it to the full extent that they think they're going to. It's usually much more successful for students to build in some structure in their weeks and to really every day of the week, especially as you're moving from the more structured world of high school to the less structured world of college. Additionally, we want to note that classes can have multiple components. So some classes are going to be structured differently than others, especially sciences. Some classes may just have a lecture section where you meet as a group 2 to 3 times a week, and that's it. Others may have that plus a discussion section where you have a smaller breakout session once per week. Biology 1001 would be an example of that. Biology also shows up as having a couple meetings on Thursday nights. These are group exams where everyone who takes bio takes an exam at the same time. Some classes will also add a lab in, so you'll have a lecture, a lab, and a discussion. So Chemistry 1001 would be an example of this at Marquette. In general, whenever you've got a class that has multiple components, basically the system's always going to link the proper components together. So you won't be able to register for a lab without the lecture that it's attached to, and you can't mix and match those lab and lecture sections. So when you go to register for classes, our biggest advice is to be flexible and have some options in mind. Most of the classes that you'll be taking are pretty standard. You'll be taking some science classes, some core classes, maybe some cognits, and some electives. Where you do have some choices, I would really encourage you to have a plan A, B, C, and maybe D. So we always know that there are a lot of students registering at once, and so the more flexible you are, the more likely you are to get a schedule that's actually satisfying. So I would build a couple ideal schedules ahead of time, knowing that you might need to flex depending on what's available. Think of it as similar to a really good sale online where many people are trying to grab these deals. We want you to be prepared with the ideas of the classes that you need, but be flexible in the way that they ultimately fit together. In general, it can be really tempting to build the most beautiful schedule you've ever seen a week before registration, but realistically, because there will be movement in classes before then, it's really best that the day of registration is when you're building that actual schedule and taking those components that you've decided on and plugging them into a schedule grid. Thinking about the tips and tricks we just went over, this is an example of a pretty nice looking schedule. You'll see that this person is not in too many classes that are back to back, and they've got some nice breaks throughout the day. Sometimes they might have some time to grab lunch, or maybe a multiple hour block where they could have some concentrated study time to get some of those hours outside of class done. You'll also notice the different class components I mentioned, like the chemistry lecture in the morning on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the lab and discussion on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. So please note that our plan is to really work with you throughout the summer to make sure that you've got the information you need to make a schedule that works for you. And again, the more flexible you can be, the more success you'll find in terms of registering for those fall 2024 classes. There are some classes that are non-negotiable in your plan, and then there's some where you've got a lot of flexibility, like which core class you take when and what general elective you take. So when you go ahead and you register, know that you're going to be able to make changes to your schedule all the way through the add drop date, which is the Tuesday of the second week of classes. So you've got a lot of time to finesse and make sure your schedule really works for you. All right, the last piece of content I want to talk about is called the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, which is otherwise known as FERPA. If you don't have a parent or family member watching the video with you, you might want to have them come over or just show this part to them later. FERPA is similar to HIPAA, which you might have heard of kind of in the healthcare field. Basically, it protects your records when you're over 18 from being viewed by anybody else. It's a privacy law. So this means that even your parents or family members or people who might be financially contributing to your Marquette education can't see your records without your permission. So we just want to let you know that it might be wise to have a conversation about these expectations and boundaries over the summer with your family members or whoever it makes sense to chat with. You can set up guest access in Checkmark to allow people to see financial or grade information. And note that grades will only be listed there twice per semester, once after midterms and once after finals. We don't send anything out to you other than that, so it's really important that you consider who you want to have access to that information and really just have those conversations about expectations. Know that on our end, we are always happy to talk to family members about struggles or issues that your student might be facing, but we're limited a little bit by FERPA in terms of what specific academic record information we can share. We are absolutely on the same team, which is team help your student be successful and graduate from Marquette, and we want to make sure that we get you the most information that we can within the constraints that we need to work in. So often that might look like maybe sharing information about what students in similar situations may have faced, help navigating policies and procedures and guidelines that we've got at the university, and also working with you to talk about how you could talk to your student about these things. This is a really important conversation to have sometime over the course of the summer so that you can just know going into the school year what your plan is in your family in terms of communication and the information that's listed in that student record. All right, let's talk next steps. We made it through. In early June, we are going to be hosting a group call that is completely optional, but if you want to hop on and talk to some advisors about the questions that you might have about registration, we will be available on this June 6th date at 7 p.m. Central. This is completely optional. We typically find that most of our students are able to navigate the process quite well with the materials we will provide you in that portal. So in the past, typically 75% of students enroll without needing help from us, and then that remainder of 25% have some questions. There's no shame in being part of that 25%, so if that's you, please hop on that call, or if you're not available to do that, you can always send questions to the email address that you see here on the screen. You'll be assigned an enrollment appointment time on June 10th, 11th, or 12th. If you're in a special program like honors or EOP or athletics, please refer to the instructions you get through that group. But everyone's going to have standard times during this June 10th through 12th period. This is the first date you can begin registering for classes. So know, like I said, that you can be changing your schedule throughout the summer, but this is when you can first log on and do it. The day of your registration, please check your Marquette email. There's going to be two things in there. First, we're going to send you information about how you can get assistance if you need it day of. We'll have advisors that are available to help you through problems that might pop up. Second, it's going to have information about a survey that it's really important that you complete. So we use the survey to basically help us understand if you were able to successfully enroll in what you wanted, or if the schedule that you have doesn't meet your needs. If there are any questions that arise on that survey or problems that are brought up to us, we will then fix them over the course of the summer. So it's really important once your schedule is done, that's your way to essentially check out with us and make sure we know that you're all set with your schedule. Again, if there are problems or issues, we will certainly help you, and the survey really helps us organize those needs accordingly. So make sure you're checking that Marquette email, figuring out the information we're going to send about how to get assistance if needed, and then filling out that survey. Then during Spark, if you're joining us on campus in the month of June, or if you're doing Spark at home and getting information virtually in the month of July, we are going to be basically able to provide you a little bit of more information just about the student perspective and the student experience, and make sure that we're checking your schedule, getting your questions answered, and giving you an opportunity to kind of run that by an advisor. So that will look different based on our people who are at Spark in person versus Spark at home. But everyone will have a chance to make sure that they know that their schedule is good to go. All right, I know that was a lot of information, so we're so excited to have you join us on campus in the fall. We're excited to help you get registered this summer and make sure to work with you really across that whole time span. So if you're still finishing up high school, I hope everything is going really well. No matter what, enjoy all the celebrations that come with this phase of life, and we look forward to seeing you soon.